So I formally welcome each and every one of you for this learning session brought to you by the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, the Learning Management Group. Today's topic is Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP for short, in coaching. So NLP in coaching. So NLP has evolved and it's evoked a lot of interest, and it's a known methodology to enhance awareness and enable behavioral change in people. It is used widely in coaching and leadership, as well as in a variety of other fields, including therapy, sports, arts, public speaking, parenting, etc. So in this session, we will try and explore what is NLP, how is it, how could be integrated in coaching, and how we can have different practices of NLP help us within our coaching practice. And now over to the speaker. So I'm very proud and very happy to introduce to you our speaker today. She's none other than Punam Bhardwaj. We've had the privilege of having her a member of the learning management team in our Mumbai chapter for some time. And it was a privilege and an honor working with her. So today she is here as our expert speaker. Punam is an ICF certified credentialed coach. She does leadership and mindset coaching, learning and organizational development consultant, and she's also an NLP trainer. She believes in the unlimited potential of the people she works with and helps them get in touch with it through her coaching practice. She's currently working with the US mortgage firm for their Innovation and Technology Center. She's based in India in the capacity of the L&OD lead, and also practices her NLP and coaching sessions there. Punam is specially invested in working with professionals, executive leaders, and women who want to explore and pivot in career in any industry. I also have a little fun fact about Punam, that she is an avid traveler. She loves to go on impromptu trips and is glad to travel whenever she's wherever she can. And she's particularly delighted now that travel has opened up and the restrictions for COVID, etc., have lifted to a considerable amount. And I think she is soon looking forward to a solo trip and an adventure trip. So all the best to you for that, Punam. And without any delay, over to you. I would request everybody else who's not speaking to be on mute. And I would invite Punam. Please take it on from here.
Thank you so much, Anu. And thank you, ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter and the Learning Management team for inviting me for this session. And I'm happy for two particular reasons. One, this community feels like home, right? So I was looking forward to today and today's session. And second, I have the opportunity to talk about something that I love and I'm deeply connected with, that is neuro-linguistic programming. But before I start and dive into the session and talk about neuro-linguistic programming, I will invite everybody who is on this call to relax. And to be able to do that, I just want you to get a sense of your body and just check in with your state. How are you going to be here for the next an hour, hour and a half? Maybe loosen up your shoulders, relax your facial muscles, and settle down with a deep breath in. And now that you are relaxed, just think about the voice of your favorite person, somebody that you love the most, someone whose voice just brings you to life. Imagine to hear their voice in your head and the sense of happiness it's bringing to you. All right. And now that I'm hoping you have a big smile on your face, we will start. So thank you everyone for showing up for this session today. We will talk about neuro-linguistic programming. We will talk about coaching. We will talk about you. and the magic you can create with your clients by integrating NLP approach in your coaching practice. So let's understand, and let's just begin with what is NLP. So NLP, as we know, it's an acronym for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So I'll just break down these three words a little bit for you. N stands for neuro, and neuro talks about our thoughts that we have in our mind, consciously, unconsciously. And when we talk about thoughts, there are two segments of thoughts that we talk about. There are two parts of a thought that we talk about. One, we talk about what is the thought, what are we thinking? And then we talk about the how of the thought. How are we thinking? So these are two very important things to understand when we start exploring neuro-linguistic programming. For example, let me take you through an experience, and I'll invite you to just follow my voice and follow my instructions. Think of a goal that you have in mind, something that's really important for you at this moment in time. Think of a goal. And I'll give you a moment to think about it. Now that you have thought of this goal, and if you're comfortable closing your eyes, you can do that. Otherwise, it's all right. Now, as you're thinking of this goal, just pay attention to the image that you're getting when you are thinking about this goal. Are you in that image achieving this goal? Do you see yourself working towards achieving this goal? Do you see yourself standing and waiting to start your work towards achieving this goal? And when you start getting these details of that image, I want you to pay attention of some aspects of this image. Where do you see this image in your line of sight, in your mind? Is it far from you, or is it really close? Is it clear, or is it a little blurry? And when you're getting these details, now I would like you to pay attention to some more aspects of this image. Does this image have any colors, or is it black and white? Who all are there in this image? Is this image a real, like a 3D image, as if it's all around you, or are you looking at it from the outside as if you're watching a movie or looking at a picture? There might be some sounds. And whatever the current state of this image is in your mind, looking at that, tell me what you're feeling when you are looking at this image in your mind. Are you feeling good about what you see, about this goal? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling that drive inside to do something about it, to take an action and how to make it happen? Or is that image making you think about thoughts? How is this going to happen? Well, you're doubting some capabilities. You are doubting whether you'll be able to achieve that goal or not. So basis on the different ways in which you are thinking about that goal. So I spoke about the what and how. The what is the goal that you are thinking about, and the how is how that thought is representing itself in your mind's eye, in your mind. So depending upon how that image is, how the thought is appearing, there might be different feelings and different ways you will approach or you will feel about that goal. So that was a small example of the what and how of a thought as we explore it in neuro-linguistic programming. Now let's come to the language. Language. So when we talk about language, there are so many languages in this world. In India itself, we speak so many languages. However, if you think about it for a minute, the human experience is way expansive than any language has been able to ever access. How our language is coding and then decoding our experiences, our thoughts, we explore that through neuro-linguistic programming. We get to learn about that. For example, if I'll say a word and tell me the first thing that comes to your mind, and you can put it in the chat, and I'll request Anu or Tushima to let me know if they can tell me some responses that are coming in the chat. So if I say the word apple, apple, tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
So there have been a few responses. Red, healthy, sweet, juicy, crisp, iPhone, teeth, food, Adam, gravity, MacBook, keeps the doctor away, red apple, juicy, green, Newton, Snow White, shape, Steve Jobs, fruit, red apple, fruit, A for apple, Newton, iPhone, flow of water. I wonder, okay, nutritional. Yes, those are the thoughts that came in.
Thank you so much, Anu. And what I was saying is that it fascinates me every time when I hear these kind of responses, because just one word, apple, and we have as many experiences with that one word, as many people we have in this session. So NLP is also very subjective in nature in terms of a rule, a guideline, a process. NLP will work differently with different people because we bring our uniqueness to our conversations. So that's how language comes into play. It explores that unique experience with language that our clients are creating in your mind. For a painter, it can be a subject to paint. For a fruit seller, it's a product. And for someone who's hungry, it can be a fruit, a food to eat. And I hadn't even thought of Snow White. I was really fascinated hearing about that response. So yes, thank you. So that's the kind of awareness NLP helps us create. When you are listening to your clients, the language that they are using can tell you a lot about how they are thinking and what they are thinking at a deeper and maybe at an unconscious level. P stands for programming, and it means just that. Every behavior, NLP says, is a learned behavior. And if we can learn to do one thing, we can learn to do another thing as well. And we explore these patterns of behavior through NLP, our inner programming of our thoughts, our experiences, language, and much more that produce these behaviors for us. How NLP began, it began as a study of excellence, and how to reproduce it by studying and applying the patterns of thoughts, language, and behavior of people who were producing excellent results in their respective fields of work at that time. In this case, Virginia Sutter, a family therapist, Fritz Perls, who's the father of Gestalt therapy, and Milton Erickson, who needs no introduction. Over the years, NLP evolved from being used in therapeutic work to being a groundbreaking methodology for creating lasting change. It is used in many fields, like Anu said initially in the introduction. It is currently being used by people in sports, people in arts, people in leadership, in many different professions, students, parents, coaches, therapists. A lot of people are using this powerful methodology. And as it evolved, it also broke some myths about creating change, that change can happen fast and change can be lasting and can happen permanently. So around the speed and permanence of change, if you will. So that's the kind of history of NLP and how it evolved to be what it is today. And before we go further talking about what NLP is about, what NLP is, it is also important to understand what NLP is not. So NLP is not therapy. NLP is not counseling. NLP is not hypnotherapy. And no, you don't have to touch your clients to use NLP in coaching. So we'll be breaking these myths as well as we go along about NLP. So you might be thinking, but do counselors, therapists, hypnotherapists, do they use NLP? Yes, they use NLP, and a lot of them do use NLP as any other subject that can help them produce excellent results. Um, so how will I define NLP? I will define NLP as a body of knowledge about how to understand patterns of our thoughts, language, and behaviors. And when I understand it, how to change the patterns that are no longer serving us. And I'm thinking you have already started to see some alignment with it with coaching. So to do so, to create that change, this body of knowledge, that is NLP, it provides us with many processes and tools and principles that guide these processes. For example, if you know VAK as a tool that you would have used in your coaching practice to understand your clients, their language, and how they're thinking their world better through the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic expressions. NLP also tells you the why and how of VAK. So it increases your awareness many folds about when you're observing your client or listening to them in your sessions, what exactly are you looking for? What are you doing and why you're doing that, and how to approach it with a better, bigger, larger awareness. Moving on, let's
Punam, there was a question. I think somebody asked what's VAK, and I think people have already answered in the chat box. But would you want to kind of talk a little more about it?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Anu. So thank you for asking the question. And so VAK is, I'll expand the letters for you. V stands for visual, A stands for auditory, K stands for kinesthetic. These expressions have been used in a lot of learning processes to know more about learners, students, people, in terms of how they think, what is their preferred way of thinking and responding and processing information. Some people respond better to visual information. That is, they would like to see pictures, they would like to watch a video, and then they respond to that better. For them, aesthetics are very important. And people who have auditory preferences respond better to auditory stimuli or inputs. For example, they listen to a podcast or they listen to an audiobook instead of reading one. And people who have kinesthetic preferences, they will respond more to a physical stimuli or a sensation. In NLP, we use kinesthetic for touch and a physical sensation. For example, I got goosebumps, right? I can feel the goosebumps. There's a physical element to it. So that is kinesthetic. So when you have this information and you understand it, I hope I answered your question. And building on that question, when you have this kind of information of your client and you have more awareness of it, you can use this information to connect with your client better, to build that rapport, to build that trust, which I'm sure are very important competencies as a coach, and very important in your partnership as a coach and your client. So speaking of NLP, we will also talk about coaching a little bit. Let's look at ICF's definition of coaching.
Punam, you want me to move to the next slide? Just let me know.
Yes, we can. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and As all of us are very well aware, that's how ICF defines coaching. It says, and when I'll be reading, I would like you to pay close attention to the words that I have highlighted here in blue. The International Coaching Federation defines coaching as partnering in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires a person to maximize their personal and professional potential. The process of coaching often unlocks previously untapped sources of imagination, productivity, and leadership. So far, whatever I have spoken about NLP and what it does and how it works, and if you look at the definition of coaching that ICF provides, you can already notice how similar the objective of NLP and coaching is. So if we move to the next slide and see how NLP and coaching connect, that's exactly where they meet. They meet at the very core of their objective and intention. And I think if NLP and coaching connect at the core of objective and intention, the kind of result that you can create for your clients can be so much better and so much fulfilling, the entire experience of having those conversations with your client. So let's understand this connection a little better, and I will expand on it now. Coaching, as we all know, coaching is a process that involves you asking questions to your clients as they work on their goal, to help them move in a forward direction based on the inputs and information that you receive from your clients. And that input you are receiving is in form of what they are sharing with you verbally, and what you're watching when your clients are sharing. So as a coach, you would like to listen to what's being said very carefully, and also to what's not being said. You would like to take your client to a greater awareness of their thoughts and behavior. You would also like to help them see, hear, and feel things from a perspective that's useful and more resourceful for them. NLP gives you the tools and the ability to see and hear your client from the greater awareness. So you will receive more information, and you'll be able to ask those empowering and relevant questions and build those coaching conversations in a way that will take your clients in the direction where they want to go in. So my teacher, he always says, when you can see it, you can move it. NLP helps you see the biggest strengths your clients have. It helps you see which values are driving their actions, the barriers your clients may be facing in their progress. And these barriers can be in the form of their thoughts, their language, which in fact our thoughts and language are interconnected, and their behaviors as well. So that's how it looks like when you start approaching these conversations from a larger awareness perspective. So let's talk about the process of change that NLP and coaching follow and intend for, and let's see where do they meet in this process. Tushma, can you take us to the next slide, please? Okay. So if you see, the premise of change for coaching is there's a goal, and to reach that goal, the client is in a place that is their current state and place, and they want to be in a desired place and state. And then we journey with them to help them go from here to there where they want to be. That's the process. That's the whole interaction about. NLP's premise of creating change is something that we call it TFAR. T stands for thoughts, feelings, action, and results. So NLP says that your thoughts create your feelings create your actions, and based on the actions that you have taken, you will get your results. Your actions create your results. So let's see how NLP takes us on this current state to desired state journey in coaching. NLP says that our thoughts play the lead role in creating a current state and the desired state too. How we are thinking currently about something, and you just change one thought and the whole experience changes for a client. And you may have experienced it yourself. A lot of people are talking about mindset and changing mindset to change your result and change your lives, even destiny. So that's the power of thought and mindset that we are talking about, and everyone knows and agrees to that. So NLP helps you decode these thoughts, these inner maps of your client's world. It helps you drop the location pin to where they are so that you can meet them where they are when you have access to the maps of your clients. So and what are maps? Our maps, our inner world, our maps. It's built on our experiences in our lives, our belief systems, the identities we carry, the language and how we perceive it, and our habits of our thinking, which in turn affects what you are focusing on, what meanings you are giving to your experiences, and how you're framing your story, how you're scripting your experience or your life. So that's what a map is all about. So imagine if you have the ability to be able to access all this information about your clients only and only by watching and listening to your clients. Imagine the kind of wins you can help them create. Imagine the degree of change you can help your clients to create in a resourceful way. And not just that, when you help your clients see and understand their own maps, imagine the level of self-awareness you can create for them. Right. And okay, so we have spoken about NLP and how it works. We've spoken a little bit about coaching. We've also understood how NLP and coaching work together. Now you might be thinking about how you can integrate NLP into your coaching practice. So let me give you good news there. The good news is that you already are doing that. Tushma, you can take us to the next slide, please. So that's the good news. The good news is that you already must be using NLP in your day-to-day lives, and you must be using NLP to help your clients create change. It's just that I have experienced that when you learn something in a structured way and you learn how to apply that, you just discover the method to the madness. And you start utilizing that superpower with much more intent, way more mindfully, and with greater responsibility to create your clients' outcomes and your outcomes as well. So we will look at some specific examples of how NLP can be leveraged in coaching practice. So I'll just talk a little bit about some processes of NLP that I have been using mostly and more frequently during my coaching conversations. So first and foremost thing, without anything else, without reaching a stage where you start helping your client, you remember the oxygen mask in case of emergency analogy. As coaches, when we partner with our clients, it requires a strong self-awareness about who you are, about your own maps, what is the belief system that you are carrying, what are your values that drive you to work with a client or create their outcomes, or how you are showing up as a coach, how you're building that trusting relationship with your client, what is your coaching state. And how can you access the state of your best self, being your best self in that coaching conversation in that moment? How can you do all that? And way more so, even before you impact your client, you will impact yourself by increasing your self-awareness in the process of learning NLP. And then will come your clients. So the first thing, as I said before as well, you can learn about a lot about the maps of your client's world. How do they represent their experience in their inner world? A lot of emphasis on understanding the role of visual, auditory, kinesthetic modalities of thoughts and language. So, and tell me something, I'm sure that a lot of you here would already know information about NLP and must already be using NLP. And a lot of you must be here for that curious discovery of what and why and how of NLP. So tell me if anyone has heard about the eye movements topics in NLP. Anybody? So let me give you a so Tushma, are there any responses coming in the chat?
There's Geeta
Yes.
who has
So
said
Geeta
yes.
has said
Yeah.
yes. Hemani also. Venkat
Right.
also.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Quite a few people have
Yeah, Rajiv. Yeah, there are few yeses.
Awesome. Super. So yeah, so this is one topic that is very fascinating. And when you discover how eye movements are connected with our thoughts, it was a huge aha moment for me. So how eye movements work is, and it's an unconscious thing. We don't really think about it, but it just happens that when we are thinking about, and I'm going to be sharing a generalized approach. Like I said, NLP is a subjective experience. So it can be different for different people. And that's why NLP insists on calibrating and not really approaching from this means this. So it will mean that for everyone. It doesn't, it highly promotes not generalizing any processes, any principles, and any approach for your clients. So one of the principles of NLP Eye Movements is that when we are thinking or accessing any information about our past, and we are accessing a visual information from our past, a visual memory, our eyes tend to move upwards towards left. And when we are creating a future memory or reference in an image, in a visual format, our eyes tend to move towards upwards right. When we are accessing auditory information from our past, our eyes will move at the level of our ears towards the left. And if it is in the future, it will move towards our right at the level of our ears. When we are accessing an inner dialogue, there's a lot of self-talk, right? If when you ask your client a question and they look down before they give you an answer and they're looking down towards the left, they are mostly experiencing a self-talk and they're listening to their own voice in their head. And whatever that voice is telling them, they are having that experience, that feeling, and then they're responding according to that. And when your eyes are moving down to the right, it's mostly the feelings that you are experiencing, sensations and feelings, K. So that's the kind of information you can get. If you want, we can have a little bit of demo here. If you're interested, let me know. So Tushma, you can tell me if you're up for a demo, a little bit of demo, we can do that and we can have a volunteer. And then I can talk about how I use this information or how I put this to use in a coaching conversation.
I think we are definitely up for a demo. In fact, there were a couple of questions from Surekha asking, how do you do this virtually on Zoom? You know, can you interpret correctly? And also, does it make a difference if the person is right-handed or left-handed? Do the eye movements also change correspondingly? So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the first question, how do you do it on Zoom? If the video is off, definitely you cannot access eye movements, but there are a lot of other ways to assess the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic preferences of people. For example, if someone sees, let's say you walk into a party, when a visual person walks into a party and they come back from the party, they will talk about how beautiful the decor was, how nicely the people were dressed, and I like the lighting, I like how the mood lighting was set up. They will talk about the visual information or things that were visually appealing. Okay, when an auditory person will go to a party, to the same party, they will come back and they may talk about how the music was, how loud it was, how low it was, and was it noisy or was it pleasant. So they will talk about the auditory inputs that stayed with them because their preference is auditory. Kinesthetic people will talk about how they felt being in that place. Was it suffocating? Did they feel happy? The vibe was nice, so they will talk about that kind of an experience. So you can go get those inputs through language. Like I said, our thoughts and our language and experiences can be decoded through the language that we are using. NLP helps us understand these words that we call predicates that people use when they are talking, to understand whether they're more of a visual person, auditory person, or a kinesthetic person. Also, the rate of speech. A visual person will speak pretty fast, very fast. A picture speaks 1,000 words. We all have heard that one, right? So they will tend to speak really fast, a lot of information. Auditory people will usually have a moderate rate of speech, and kinesthetic people will speak with a slow pace and processing every feeling that is coming to them with everything that they are saying, and they will also process it in the same way. So these are some ways to calibrate your clients in terms of their preferences of these. Representation system is what we call representation system. We take that experience and we represent it in our mind through pictures, sounds, and feelings. So that answers the first question. So if the video is off on Zoom, how can you access that? And what was the second question, Tushima?
The second one is, does it make a difference if the person is right-handed or left-handed?
It can make a difference very much. Even if the person is right-handed, it can be different. Even if the person is, it can be also be different for 5 right-handed people. What I shared is what the majority of experiences that have been recorded through research in NLP so far. So if I'm a right-handed, I've also had experiences where people are thinking visually, but they are responding auditorily. So they're processing the way of and then you can go deeper and deeper. There's a primary representation system and then lead representation system. How you process this in your mind and then how you present it to the world also can be different. So there are a lot of interesting aspects that we can decode. Like we can have a whole session only on VAK. So, but I think this is good for now. So the second question, majority of people are visual. Maybe, yes. And so the second question, I'm sorry, Sushma, I forgot the second question was. Can it make a difference when people are left or right-handed?
Yeah.
Yes, it can be different. It can be different for different people.
Punam, my question was, if you're interpreting that looking in the right side up represents something for a righty, would it be flipped if the person is a lefty, like looking in the left upward?
So like I said, it may be, but it is not for sure that it will be. NLP, like I said, it's very subjective. So what NLP promotes is to calibrate. And you will calibrate when you are having these conversations. You can also calibrate people even in your discovery session, the very first session. You can get all this information from your clients, right? So it can be and it may not be. Okay, are we up for a demo?
Yes.
Okay, then I need a volunteer, and I would like the volunteer to sit in a position that they are close enough to the screen for everyone to be able to notice their eye movements, and they'll have to definitely come on video.
So can I request Sushima to unshare the slides for now, and anyone who wants to be a volunteer, please raise your hand. Then I will spotlight the two of you, and we could hopefully have a good demo. So anyone who wants to volunteer, please raise your hand. No one so far. It's not going to be difficult. I don't think Punam is going to say anything terrible.
No, I'll ask very simple, very simple questions.
So anyone? Going one, going twice. Okay.
We have a
volunteer.
All
we
right.
have two volunteers.
We have two.
All right. So you want to take two volunteers or one?
We can go with one, Anu.
Okay. So we have Kim. Kim, now you need to come on camera, and then I need to spotlight you.
Yeah, spotlight for everyone.
Yeah. Kim Kariappa, could you please come on camera? Are you able to do so? Yes. All right. So I'm going to spotlight.
And you can only spotlight Kim, Manu. You
Kim.
don't have to
All right.
spotlight.
Don't have to spotlight you? Okay.
No.
All right. Great.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for volunteering.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. So Kim, I'll speak to the rest of the group for a minute.
Okay.
So everyone, I'll just ask some questions to Kim, and these responses, as I said, that these are automatic, unconscious response that body creates. You might have to pay close attention because it may just come and go. So you have to notice the very first response that you may observe, and feel free to put your observations into the chat, and avoid coming off mute because it may just interfere in Kim and my conversation. So thank you so much. All right, Kim, so if you're ready.
Yes, I am.
All right. So Kim, can you tell me the color of the shirt or t-shirt you were wearing yesterday?
Blue.
Okay. And can you tell me the color of the wall of the biggest room in your house?
White.
Okay. Can you tell me the color of, can you tell me how will it look like? How can you imagine a cow?
A cow?
Yes.
Yes, sure.
What color the cow is?
Black.
Black. Okay, that's good, useful information. Now, can you imagine this cow if it turns green? How will it look like?
A green cow. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah, I can.
All right, perfect. And now imagine this cow starts mooing. Can you hear it in your mind?
Okay, I'm imagining.
Imagining, got it. Yes, yes, I can see that. So you saw the cow first, and then you heard it mooing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And now, can you imagine that cow, instead of mooing, it starts meowing?
Okay.
Right. All right.
Okay, that took some imagination. Okay.
Right. All right. And so, Kim, can you also tell me, can you tell 5 things that you love about yourself in your mind? Can you tell yourself?
I tell myself.
Yeah, just say it to yourself in your mind, like you're having a pep talk. You're giving a pep talk to yourself.
Yes.
Super. And after having that amazing pep talk, how are you feeling?
Happy, easy, relaxed.
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah, I think it's mainly happiness.
All right.
What I read. Okay.
Thank you so much, Kim. And we're done.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. So Anu, you can unspotlight Kim. Thank you so much. Okay, so any observations that are coming up in the chat for us, or any questions? And what was not lost on me when he was giving himself a self-talk and the eyes went down to his left, and when he accessed the feeling, how he's feeling after having that pep talk, eyes went down to the right, and then maybe, and because we are not having a solitary experience, our experience is made of the images, the sounds, and the feelings. The eyes will shift from top to left to bottom, and that's the calibration that you have to do as a coach in terms of where does it go first, or where is it leading the client. So how I use this information, what's more important, and more than a fun exercise and having an epiphany of, okay, so this is how eye movements work. What's more important for me as a coach is to understand that when they are saying something unresourceful, the client is saying something unresourceful, are they accessing an unresourceful or an unsuccessful past experience? And how is that impacting their actions and decisions they are making in their present or in their future? That's the information that is important for me, so that I can meet them where they are and I can take them towards a resourceful thought, help them create a resourceful picture in their mind, so that they can take those actions. And this is just one example of how I use VAK and eye movement principles that I teach in NLP. So, and you've seen it for yourself, how powerful it can be. Okay, I'll speak about some other tools that we use. And another tool that's been very resourceful for me is well-formed outcomes, which is at the core and the foundation of every coaching conversation. When we speak setting goals in the very beginning, you must have helped your clients visualize your goal. You have, right? So well-formed outcomes go way beyond just visualizing the goals and understanding the measures of success of the goals. Well-formed outcomes enrich this very most foundation of coaching experience, coaching conversations, creating outcomes that help your clients take an action towards their dreams and goals. It can break down the goals into milestones, explore the ecological alignment, and helps focus on elements which are directly under my control and something that I can influence and focus on. So which aspects, if I focus on my goal, will help me move forward and take an action towards it. So well-formed outcomes are very popularly used in NLP. Then Metamodel. Metamodel is something that has taken my coaching practice to a completely different level. I call this tool something that helps me peel the layers of the language onion. So Metamodel helps us understand the surface level structure of a language and the deep structure of a language when a client is talking, and it helps you understand the meanings that they are giving to their experiences through language, and how are they deleting information from their experience. And just by listening to some words and how they're using language, you can get all this information. When you have this information, you can ask those powerful questions, those relevant and useful questions to your clients. It teaches you to identify the unresourceful patterns in the language and help them to change it, either by changing the language itself or by changing the thought, because I'll reiterate, they're both interconnected. Another useful tool that I have in NLP is anchoring. Anchoring is so powerful. It helps build powerful associations for clients to help them access empowering states, mentally and even physiologically, right? So have you ever told a client to write a quote that they connect with and keep it in front of them, so that every time they look at it, it gives a message that they want to access over and over again? Have you done that? If you have, then you have created an anchor for your clients. See, that's what I meant when I said you must already be using NLP in your practice, right? So that can be a visual anchor, right? Telling yourself something, an affirmation, and when you tell that to yourself, you feel powerful, or you feel what you want to feel, not just powerful, with whatever state you want to create. That's an example of an auditory anchor. And kinesthetic anchor, like I said, it connects with more physical elements. So I'll give you an example about myself of anchoring. So most of my working life, I have worked through corporate offices. I have used those office chairs all my working life in corporate. And there was a time where I had taken a break from corporate life and was venturing and exploring my strengths, myself on my own. And I was mostly working from home. And I noticed that my productivity is not as much as it used to be when I was in a 9 to 5, not really a 9 to 5, but we'll use that expression. And then after it's 6 to 8 months of working from wherever I could sit, whichever place I could access, then I bought a chair for myself to use at home to make a working space in my house. And then I started using that chair. It did not hit me immediately, but over a period of a week, I experienced that my productivity increased. I used to spend much more time at my working desk, and I used to feel alert and everything. And then it hit me like a bullet. That was a big aha moment for me, that kind of a chair automatically, unconsciously was programmed in my body as an anchor for work. So when I'm sitting on that chair, it means work, it means business. And that was a kinesthetic anchor for me, a physical anchor that I can touch, feel, and access. So that was an anchor for me to increase my productivity and stay focused and concentrate and do more work and spend long hours at work. So these are some examples. If I'm able to explain it, I hope so. That's how anchoring works. So, and you can also use VAK information. What's your person's preferable representation system? So you can use that information to help them create that anchor. For example, I have a friend who is a musician. So nothing visual or kinesthetic worked for him. So he had to create an auditory anchor for himself to just, push himself forward and get into that state and just go get it done. So he used to use either a song or something that he has to tell himself every time when he wanted to access that state. And I'm using state a lot, so I think I will talk about it also a little bit. State is a state of mind and body. It's a feeling that you access, and a lot of our values are also states that we want to experience: happiness, peacefulness, a state of flow. So NLP also helps you identify empowering states for yourself and how you can access those states through useful anchors or whatever is your process of getting into that state. So I create a coaching state for myself when I have to get into a coaching conversation, because if I've had a work call, and I'm in a bad mood, I just don't want to take that self to my coaching conversation, and I have to leave that self there and access my best self as a coach to show up for my clients. So how do I do that? How do I change that in an instant? How can I access that state, and what that state will look and feel and sound like for me, so we can break down those states and then just put them together for us to wear it like a cloak in that moment, whatever you want it to be. So after anchoring and states, I want to talk a little bit about reframing. And as coaches, I'm very sure that you have used reframing for your clients. And in chat, if you can just respond a little bit, your understanding of reframing and how you use that, and how do you see reframing? Paraphrasing, reframing the future state, change of perspective. Absolutely. They're giving different perspective. Absolutely. And don't we do that all the time with our clients when we are coaching them? So I want to give you a metaphor for reframing. If you, in fact, let's just forget about that. Have you ever used a kaleidoscope? A kaleidoscope is this long viewing pipe which has 3 glasses which are set in a particular way, and you can get a particular pattern that appears when you look through it, and then you just rotate the position of those glasses little bit, and that pattern that you see, it completely changes. That's what reframing is all about. I heard it somewhere that it's the difference that makes the difference. So that's the difference that you can help to create for your clients by helping them reframe their thoughts, their experiences, and how they are looking at things, and how they're perceiving people, and the meanings that they're attaching and giving to their experiences. It's a slight difference in perspective, like a kaleidoscope that can completely change their experience. So reframing is another powerful tool that can be used, learned, and used in your coaching. It's the difference that makes the difference. That's right. Thank you. So I'll not talk about when we speak of change, and when we speak of creating change at a deep level, and a change that can be sustained and last. We are not unfamiliar with logical levels of change. And just give me a thumbs up if you can, if you've heard about logical levels of change. It was created by Robert Dills, pioneer and really important contributor in the field of NLP from the times that NLP has started. So logical levels of change explores where clients, when you're listening to your clients and they tell you that this is the problem and this is where I'm stuck. So, and the logical levels of change help you understand where is your client stuck, where if you can make that change, it's like a domino effect. If you can change that one thing, it will in turn change the rest of it for them automatically. So where if the change can be made is the most impactful. So from psychological point of view, there are believed to be 5 levels that one works with most often. The basic level is your environment, where you are, your external constraint, where you are, people around you, everything that's outside of you, any external constraint. So that is your most basic level. You operate in that environment through your behavior. You respond to your external environment, and that response comes in the form of the actions you take, or we can say your behavior. So how I just want you to see how one thing connects to the other. Your behavior is guided by how you're experiencing things in your mind. So your behavior is guided by your mental maps and your strategies, which define your capabilities. You cannot, and how you're perceiving that information. These capabilities are a result of our belief system, or organized by our belief systems. And our beliefs are controlled, or are an outcome of the identities that we carry. So you see how everything is connected. So when coaching a person who is experiencing a challenge, you may explore whether the difficulty is coming from an external context, whether perhaps the individual doesn't have the required sort of behavior, which may be because they are not operating from the right belief system, which can be because of how they are perceiving themselves in terms of who they are. So there might be an interference at the level of identity. So these become very important things and distinctions for everyone working. When you are working with people, whether you are in the field of learning or communication or change, and as a coach, that's what we do. So it becomes very important to get an input, an idea of that. And when we are coaching, when we are setting goals, we always check how this current goal is connected to the bigger picture, their purpose, or how is it in alignment, ecologically aligns with the rest of the things that they are doing. So then there is a top level that comes after identity, is the purpose, why I'm doing it, whom do I serve, and what's the purpose. So people call it the level of spirituality or the purpose. And it focuses on these questions about existence and purpose. So it's very closely connected to the identity of who I am and who I'm serving and what I'm doing. So you reflect in those ways. So that's logical levels of change. So these are some tools that, and you remember when we spoke about our goals in the beginning, and I helped you to share, and I asked you to share how you're thinking about your goals. And those small elements that I asked you to notice when you were getting an image, the color, the sound, the size, these are called submodalities of our thoughts. So the submodalities of our thoughts are very powerful. If you can just change the submodalities of a thought, of an experience, the clients experience a lot of change. It's very impactful and useful for them, and how you are changing it, what they currently are, and the change that you are bringing. So submodalities are also an important aspect of NLP that is very often used by coaches in their coaching conversations with their clients. So these are some very frequently used, and like I said, these are just few of them. constraint of time, and I would have loved to teach one of the things, but there's not enough time for me to teach and make you practice it. But all this information can be explored, learned about. You can ask any questions and we can have a dialogue of what and how. So yeah, that's what it is. And I'll just say one last thing in terms of from my side, and then we can open it up for questions and dialogue, is that when we talk about grow and structuring our conversations, and we talk about exploring and peeling off the layers. NLP, if you would have explored NLP a little bit, it talks a lot about unconscious and conscious. So NLP, basically what it does is that it helps you create change at the level of your unconscious, which is 95% of your experience is built with that. And the 5% is on the top. That is the top of the iceberg, if you would like to picture it like that. So when you are working with your conscious through your unconscious, and the purpose of NLP is to create that awareness so that your unconscious, so you can operate from a conscious unconscious approach, and you can make your unconscious work for you instead of your unconscious making you work or driving you, so that you can be in the driving seat and you can have that control and you can be in charge of your experiences, and you can decide what you want to feel and what do you have to do to be there and get there. So over to you, Anu, Tushima, everybody, for any questions, any comments, any personal experiences you would like to share.
Yeah,
Wow,
Punam,
thanks.
there are a couple of
Yeah.
questions in the chat box. Right. So the most recent one is, how is working with meta models different from reframing experiences?
Okay.
So do you want to answer that first?
Yes. How I look at it is that I look everything that I do as a coach as a reframing exercise. Okay. So that I can change their perspective, I can change the lens of their experience and how they are seeing things. So when in terms of NLP and in terms of tools, they are taught with different principles and guidelines, but then you can use the information by understanding the patterns of language under Metamodel to help your client to reframe. In reframing, we mostly talk about two kinds of reframing. One is a reframing of the context, the situation, in which you take a current behavior and you put it in a different context. And then you also talk about the content reframing, that is the thought itself. If you can create that change at the level of the thought, how, and then you can just observe how it changes their language or their thoughts. So it is kind of connected, Tushima.
There are a couple of I think related questions in the chat box on this. So Tapas has asked for an example. So Tapas, do you want to clarify?
Yeah.
What is it that you would like an example of? Any of the specific tools or methods mentioned? Okay, an example to highlight the difference.
Okay. Okay.
And I think also he earlier mentioned if you could give examples of the different ways that you use the different things that you meta model, etc. I think he wanted little more explanation in terms of how these tools are used with coaching.
Okay. Okay. I can talk a little more about that. Like, for example, let me give you an example of meta model. Okay. So in meta model, very specifically, we teach about 15 to 16 patterns of language that you can observe in your clients. And instead of going into 15 to 16 patterns, I will group them into 3 things that we do when we are experiencing anything. We are taking input from any external experience. We always delete, we distort, and we generalize. Okay. And Metamodel helps us understand these patterns of deletion, patterns of distortion, and patterns of generalization. For example, if I'm saying, do we have understanding of generalization, deletion, and distortion, or I can talk a little bit about that as well.
Okay, let's request everyone to put their responses in the chat box. Just a yes or no. These 3 are clear enough.
I will talk about it.
Yes.
For example, when I say that, Tushima, I will use you as a reference. Tushima, you make me angry. Okay. How much information does it give you?
Hardly any.
Right. So very less. Thank you, Harish. So you would want to ask me, how do you make me angry? Right?
What makes you angry?
What makes me angry, or how do you make me angry? What makes me angry is that when you talk to me and then I have to ask you a question 3 times and you don't respond to me, and then I have to ask you again and again, that makes me angry. Right? So what is the connection between you not responding and me feeling angry? How am I perceiving that experience? So when you don't when you don't respond to me, I feel you're not respecting me. So that's the meaning that I'm giving to an experience that I'm having, where Tushima not responding, that means I'm being disrespected. That's the meaning that I have given, right? And when we associate our own meanings from our own imagination to our experiences, we call this a process of distortion, where we are either interpreting meanings or assigning meanings. And distortion can be useful, distortion can be unresourceful as well, in depending upon what kind of distortion you are doing. For example, you succeeded at something at work and you say, well, if I can do this thing, I can do 10 more things. Right? You are interpreting your success based on one experience that you had, and you're drawing out meaning of one success. It means that you can be continuously successful. That's an example of useful distortion. Yeah. So when we associate meanings and we interpret things on our own without having any physical, tactile evidence, we are always distorting information. And that's how Metamodel helps us identify these patterns of distortion and deletion. For example, when I say that I don't think I'm better than others, right? That's a complete statement in itself, and a lot of people use it, and I would have used it, but you don't know what am I talking about. Better how? What am I comparing it with? What is my reference point of comparison? I have completely deleted that information, and I have just processed the entire experience in my head, lived it, felt bad about it, and then this is my reality that I have created about myself, that I just am not better than the others, or everyone else is better than me.
There's a follow-up to this from Anbu. Is the brain doing this to protect oneself?
Let me tell you, everything that your unconscious does is to help you is for you, to protect you. And it is working on your unconscious. It is also responding to your unconscious fears, your unconscious discomfort, things that you don't like, and it is always working for you. Yes, it is working to protect you. But there can be instances that in order to protect ourselves, our brain may not be able to differentiate between what is a resourceful behavior to protect myself or what is an unresourceful behavior to protect myself. That distinction, the brain may not do. Yeah, I'm loving these questions.
Yes. And I only have to ask them once and not 3 times.
Yes, Dushima, you're not making me angry.
Oh, wow, what a relief. Okay, moving on to a different question. Okay, Geet asked this a while back. Can you share what is the best way and approach to use logical levels? Is it to be used as a tool by itself or as an approach of extensive exploration of finding the root cause, like you mentioned earlier?
I'll go with the second one. And the first one, right? So you can use it as a tool. In the beginning, when I was learning NLP, I used to keep it as a reference for myself. So I know when I'm eliciting information from my client, I'm asking relevant question to understand what is the environment the client is operating it, what are some external factors in play in creating the current situation, and then I move to behaviors. How are you responding to those external factors? All right, so that's how you're responding. Is there another way that you can respond? Now we are exploring capabilities, whether I can or no, this is the only way I can respond. Now, why is that? There could be a belief operating in the background or some values that are driving that this is the only way I can respect. Then we can explore those beliefs and values. Where are those beliefs coming from? Who are you? Right? Because I am this person, I cannot do that. Then we can explore things at the level of identity. And that's how it connects. So I hope I was able to answer that question.
There's a question in the chat box from Naomi. Is there any negative anchor? And if yes, how do you change it into a positive one?
Perfect. Yes, there can be a lot of unresourceful anchors. Let me give you some examples, fascinating examples of unresourceful anchors. Weather, colors, food, people, right? Cities, a room in your house. All these can be unresourceful anchors. A song, a sad song. Have you ever heard a sad song and immediately started feeling like sad about nothing? I said, why am I sad? Right. I used to have this anchor, like I was a fan of in India, for everyone who is joining us from outside in India, we have a famous singer known as Jagjit Singh, and all his songs were very sad and about heartbreak and very soothing, like heartbroken voice. And I used to be a huge fan of him. But then I started feeling that the more and more I listen to his song, the more and more I am living that state. It kind of used to take over. So it used to, that it worked as a negative association, negative anchor for me. So I really stopped listening or reduced my listening of those kind of song. Now my anchors, I've created a very powerful anchor. I have a playlist of songs that when I'm feeling low or I'm in a self-doubt, I have a list of songs I've created that I listen to them, and I immediately it changes my I don't even have to do anything. Those songs are playing in the background and my unconscious is just responding to that music that's playing, and it's automatically changing my state. So yes, there can be negative anchors. How we work with negative anchors, there are two ways. One, we learn how to collapse anchors, how to break that negative association, and then how do we replace it with a powerful anchor? We create a powerful anchor to fill that in. That's how we work with negative anchors.
And I think that also answers Anu's question of, can anchors also be called associations?
Yes,
Yes, they can.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a very interesting question from Nikhil in the chat box. So,
Mm.
is there a risk of bringing too much of me, the coach, into the session, rather than it being focused primarily on the client?
I want to understand more in terms of how are you bringing too much of yourself?
Nikhil?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering, because when there is all this additional information that is likely to be available to me, I may be using all of that and therefore processing that and focusing more on that than on classically what I'm currently doing, which is my client. So just a thought that came, is there a risk of that happening with all this additional input that I'm getting thanks to NLP?
Okay. Thank you, Nikhil. I will say there is an advantage of having this awareness about yourself. And then you can mitigate that risk because of this awareness. That would be my response to your question.
Cool. Thank you so much.
I hope it answered your question, though.
Yeah, no, I'm just keen to know how you're using it, because clearly you are. And it just occurred to me that it could happen that, and therefore, yeah. So.
And that's what we are taught, right? To be fully aware and not take ourselves to the session, but just be there and yet not be there. And how for that, you have to be aware of yourself first. And that will help you mitigate that risk and, have them operate from a state of awareness.
I'm just going to ask a couple of questions more.
Yes.
Punam. And then once we go into the open session, we can just get everyone to come off mute and ask the questions themselves. So,
sure.
What's the difference between NLP and coaching? This question came in a while ago in the chat box.
Right.
Yeah, but for some reason it didn't come up then. So.
Right. Like we focus on the definition of coaching, that it's a process. How I look at it, that in coaching, you work with your clients to help them work on their goals, and you take them from point A to point B. As simply as I can put coaching. NLP is a body of knowledge. It gives you tools and processes to have greater awareness about yourself and your client and the information that they are providing to you. And there are guidelines and principles to use as processes and tools to enhance your coaching capability, to have more powerful, useful, resourceful conversations with your clients. So like any other body of knowledge, whether it is positive psychology, would you not like to explore it to make sure that you can help your clients better? So something like that. NLP is a body of knowledge, and it gives you a lot of tools and information to enhance your coaching capability.
Thanks, Punam. There was a question that came in at the time of the registration process. So there were a few people who were actually very diligently entered questions at the time of registering. And one of them was, how do you use NLP within the Icf guidelines? So I suppose you need to do anything differently is really the question.
So this is a very open-ended question, right? And I'll respond to it differently. I'll say, do I use NLP within the guidelines of ICF? I'll say yes. Now, which specific guidelines is a concern around? Then I can connect my answer to that.
So the specific guideline wasn't really mentioned here, but in case anyone wants to.
So I think one of the most, and I'll welcome any specifics that come in the chat.
If there are any follow-ups, we can always get.
Yeah. So I think the very basic guideline is, do you lead your clients? We don't lead our clients, right? Like I said, you don't have to touch your clients to use NLP. You don't really have to make them close their eyes and do them things in their imagination only to use NLP. Have you asked your client to imagine they are looking at the situation from a third floor balcony? Have you ever used that kind of work in your coaching conversation? That's the dissociation process that we teach in NLP that you're using already in your coaching, right? So how do you conversationally integrate NLP? So the session that I do for the practitioner session that I do specifically for coaches, this is the kind of information I help them to understand and learn how to be an NLP practitioner, and then use it within the Icf guidelines in your coaching practices. And if someone is not an Icf certified coach who is here, then how do you generally use it in your coaching practice?
Great. So the takeaway there, if I got it right, Punam, is that we can safely use NLP tools and techniques in our coaching processes and still be well within the Icf code of conduct.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. I think Anu is a good time to stop the recording.
Yeah.
We can
if I
have an
I was
session.
just wanting to quickly come in. So before we officially close the session, I need to get the picture taken. So I would request everyone to please come on camera so that we can have a session, the beautiful session that we had with Punam captured. And I would request all of you to please switch on your cameras so that I can take the session picture. And after that, we and as well as you are all putting on your cameras, I'm going to officially thank Punam for beautifully taking us through the entire concept of NLP, stitching it so beautifully to coaching and what we as coaches can actually do to use these NLP tools and techniques to enhance our practice and our experience of coaching and give our coaches a more deeper meaning and understanding as well. So thank you so much for doing that.